Oh, no, sorry. That's for the flight.
Here. Okay, welcome everyone formally again to C Junction. So I'm Bom Latapon, I'm program manager at C Junction. For those of you who haven't been here or not knowing C Junction is a public venue focusing on every aspect of Southeast Asia, from art and culture to development, human rights, and so on. So the topic we're going to discuss today is very much in line with our interest, which is on digital authoritarianism in Southeast Asia. We are very pleased today to host the launch of joint report series by the ASEAN Regional Coalition to Stop Digital Dictatorship. Title, Dawn of Digital Dictatorship, Weaponizing the Law Against Online Speech in Asia. So without further ado, I'll pass the floor to Debbie, our moderator today, who will introduce the topic as well as the speaker.
Yes, everybody, I'm the moderator. I'm in charge. Listen to me. Yeah, sorry. I've been becoming too dictatorial at the launch of the dawn of digital dictatorship. Weaponizing the law against online speech in Southeast Asia. Welcome to the launch to those who have turned up in person and those joining us online. I'm Debbie Stothard. I will be your immoderate moderator. And I'm the coordinator of ALTSEAN-Burma. We're very proud to be one of the members of the ASEAN Regional Coalition to hashtag Stop Digital Dictatorship. Today, I want to show the very beautiful report. Would you like to do the hand, like, you know, this is amazing. This is a gorgeous report. And not only is it gorgeous on the outside, it's the whole package. It's gorgeous on the inside. Lots of very useful information, but also user-friendly infographics. Now, you cannot lay your hands on this hard copy of this report. You have to save some trees, and you have to get this tiny bit of paper and use the QR code to download. Okay, don't forget. We're going to have so much kick-ass social media, so please look for it and share. Okay, so who are we? We are the ASEAN Regional Coalition to hashtag Stop Digital Dictatorship. We came together, oh my God, during the COVID pandemic. We came together online, okay? We didn't break any lockdowns. And we worked together. We came together to decolonize digital rights in Southeast Asia, to resist digital authoritarianism. It's like, what the hell? They've actually been persecuting us on the outside, and now they want to come after us in our digital space, but also to build lasting solidarity online. And if you are from a member organization, or you come from an organization and you think maybe you'd like to get involved, please do. We are very serious and dedicated, but we are also very fun to work with. You know, and I'm not speaking personally, but there are some very cool people in the coalition. I'm not saying that I am, but there are very cool people that you will meet today because they're going to be speaking at this launch. So together, we experience and denounce digital dictatorship, tech companies' complicity, and we work together to act across this region. Because finally, for most of us, whether we're in a war zone or in an urban city, our rights to the internet, our access to the internet, our ability to express ourselves and to work together across cultural, geographical, and other boundaries via the internet is what we continue to do. we have seen the rise or the dawn of digital dictatorship as documented in this report in the past 4 years, where repressive governments and even governments that claim to be democratic use COVID-19 and all sorts of vague laws to restrict us. And when they restrict us in the digital space, they restrict us in the physical space, because many people have been arbitrarily detained, even tortured, and sentenced to long jail sentences simply for expressing themselves online. This very big report is basically a compendium of different contributions from different ASEAN countries, from members of different ASEAN countries, to give us a snapshot of what's been happening in the past 4 years. And also, we need to take this time to show our respect and express our solidarity with the courageous online activists, mainly young people, civil society activists, including people in rural areas, in urban poor, and journalists and media, including independent media and citizen journalists who've used the digital space in order to advocate and to share vital information necessary for our democracy. So I'm not going to give the very long speech because I have to be short and to the point, although I'm actually physically tall. I think what we need to also understand is that in this space that we locate ourselves in the global south, we also need to understand that class struggle is important. So when we are talking about this regional coalition to #Stop Digital Dictatorship, we are also fighting back against oppressive economic and political practices aimed at keeping marginalized communities down and aimed at promoting neoliberal and colonialistic values ahead or instead of local indigenous communities. So today we have 6 kick-ass feminists and feminist allies on site and joining us online, who will speak for 10 minutes each. I have a timer. And then after everyone has spoken, we will open up the floor to questions. So firstly, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce Emilie Pradichit, an intersectional feminist visionary and human rights lawyer. Visionary also because it was her bloody idea to start this ASEAN regional coalition to #Stop Digital Dictatorship. And it's not really a name that is good for asthmatics, but it is our name as a regional coalition and we love it. So this was Emilie's vision. She's done a lot of amazing human rights work. And I just want to hand over the mic to her. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Thank you for joining us in person and online. The ASEAN Regional Coalition to Stop Digital Dictatorship, it's a vision that was very important to me, but also to my friends who joined the coalition. It's because I remember in 2019, I went to RightsCon and I was with other friends from Southeast Asia, and they were telling me, why are people talking about Burma, but they're not from Burma? And at that time, there were a lot of activists from Burma who were very public, you know, in the advocacy about Burma, about Myanmar. And they were telling me why there's no representation from our region. And so came the idea of decolonizing digital rights, and came the idea of building this regional coalition to push back on digital dictatorship, because it's really important for us to tell our stories and to tell our truth, to stand in solidarity with one another, and to resist digital dictatorship together, and not having it done by other people from the global north or other people based in DC or in other countries. Many of us also contribute to the Freedom of the Net report, and we are very grateful to it. But we really wanted to have something from the region. So it's 4 years in the making. Just to let you know, we've been doing this for the past 4 years. And so this is the first ever report that is looking at the rise of digital dictatorship from 2020 to 2023. And we are talking about countries that you don't necessarily hear about. So I'm usually often asked to talk about Thailand because we are in Thailand. So I am not going to give you an overview about what's happening in Thailand because we have Pim with us, an amazing feminist activist who are actually a victim of lèse-majesté and a direct victim of digital dictatorship online, and then how it's being reflected offline, and then how she's being persecuted because of that. But I would like to share with you the situation in Laos. So the report is the very first report that actually includes the digital rights situation in Laos. And it's a country that nobody talks about, and it's a country that very little people care about. And because I'm Lao and I'm from Laos, it's critically important for me to tell you what's happening in Laos. So what's happening in Laos is that we are in a very close country. And if you look at our report, the country is very restricted, is very close. There's no open and independent civil society in Laos. There's nobody who is going to tell you the truth about what's happening in Laos simply because they are scared of disappearing since the disappearance of Sombath Somphone in 2012, or they're scared of being shot or being killed. But with the rise of Thai democracy youth and what is happening in Hong Kong, and we saw the pro-democracy movement in Thailand, a lot of young people in Laos starting to speak up. A lot of young people in Laos decided to become fearless because they saw what's happening with the military alliance and the hashtag military alliance. So they wanted to be part of it. And so what we are seeing now in Laos, we are seeing young people who are using the internet, Lao population using the internet, and we are seeing a government that is trying to restrict what is happening on the internet. Just like in other Southeast Asian countries, we see the same tactics being used: harassment, disinformation, state-led disinformation, the passing of cyber laws to crack down on activists. In Laos, the government is mainly using Article 117 of the Penal Code to charge people for anti-state propaganda, but they also passed new laws during the period of our report. So in 2020, the government decided to make the registration of SIM card mandatory until the end of last year. So everybody has to register the SIM card now in Laos, have to give the identity if they want to have a phone number, otherwise the phone is going to be disabled. It's a way of controlling and surveilling Lao people. In 2021, we also saw the telecom law that was passed in Laos to basically force internet service providers to collaborate with the government and regulate and remove content. We also saw the Lao government trying to impose the digital dictatorship on tech companies. So in 2021, we saw the Lao government imposing on any news outlet using Facebook to share information to be registered with the Ministry of Telecommunication. And in just last year, we also saw the Lao government giving the intention to the Lao population that they are going to go after every social media user who is basically criticizing the government. And they're looking at people posting about the Lao government inside Laos, but also outside Laos. And I think that's really important for me to tell you why the Lao government is so arrogant, thinking that they can go after people like people at Manushya and other activists who are in exile posting about the Lao government. It's because of transnational repression. It's because the Lao government is very confident that they are receiving the collaboration from Thailand and other neighboring countries to crack down on activists. And so the trend that we are seeing, but not only targeting Lao activists, but also targeting Cambodian activists in Thailand, Vietnamese activists and others, is that everybody that is doing the advocacy online using Facebook as a very powerful platform, to tell the truth against the government, to tell the truth and to speak the truth to power, they are being targeted when they are trying to seek refuge in Thailand. And so that's something that I really want people to realize, is that when we are doing our online activism online, And when people are in Laos trying to share information on Facebook online, because there's no independent media in Laos, there's no space where you can find the truth. People are turning into social media and mainly Facebook to share the information. Lao citizens become citizen journalists. Lao people become bloggers. And as a result of that, they are putting their life at risk. And so there is a rise of transnational repression happening in Thailand, where we have activists coming from Laos, activists coming from Cambodia, coming here to hide because of Facebook posts that they are doing. They are being sued by the government, by the governments for defamation. They're being charged by the government for anti-state propaganda, or they are receiving threats, intimidation, and psychological pressure that force them to flee, that force them to come here. But when they come here, they are very unsafe because they're facing transnational repression, and then the repression is happening physically. So it's really important for people to understand that digital dictatorship is going beyond borders, and it's starting online, and then it ends offline with activists being killed, disappearing, or activists being victim of attempted murder. In our report, we have the case of Jack Anusa, who is a prominent Lao activist who is administrating a leading Facebook page that is called Power of the Keyboard, who was shot twice in a cafe in Vientiane, Laos, simply for speaking his truth to power, simply for advocating for human rights in Laos, and precisely because he was denouncing how Laos has become a colony of China. And because of that, he was shot twice. He almost died. He was first declared dead by his family in order to protect him until we were able to evacuate him from Laos, until he was put in a safe location. But again, wherever he is, he's still facing transnational repression. In another case, we have our friend Bun Swan, who was a member of the Free Laos Democratic Group, who was doing online advocacy and offline advocacy. And he was calling for democracy from Thailand. He's also a Lao migrant worker who was based in Bangkok. And he became a UNHCR recognized refugee because it was very important for him to leave Thailand. Why? Because he was facing transnational repression. The Lao embassy and Lao authorities, together with Thai authorities, following him. Sadly, he was found dead on 17 May last year in Ubon Ratchathani, 1 week before he was flying to Australia, where he was supposed to be resettled. And so this is the extent to which the Lao government is able to crack down on democracy activists who are basically using the online space to advocate for human rights and to advocate for democracy. So I'm using this opportunity really with everybody to raise awareness about what's happening in Laos. It's really important for people to understand that Laos is not a democratic state. We are under an authoritarian government. Lao people do not dare to speak online, and when they do, they are facing repression. They are facing tactics to make them disappear. And when they are crossing the border to come to Thailand, to seek refuge, hoping to be sent to a third country, a resettlement country, they have to hide. They are still facing transnational repression here because Thai authorities are collaborating with Lao authorities to crack down on them. It's not just happening to Lao activists, it's also happening to Cambodian and Vietnamese. And the worst case scenario that we have is that they are being killed, like in the case of Bun Swan last year. This is a trend that is not going to decrease. What we are witnessing, especially at the beginning of 2024, because people will be also looking at what we're going to do next, the situation is getting worse. We have more and more people from Southeast Asia, from Cambodia, and from Laos crossing borders, and we have more and more cases of transnational repression. So I really want to stop here and tell people that please be aware that when we are risking our lives to tell the truth online, we are truly risking our lives physically as well, because people are being tracked down, and Thailand is not a safe place for anyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Emilie. Most people, Laos is just across the border. It's just a day trip. Maybe some of us who are foreigners might go over there for a weekend or a visa run, but this is what's been happening. I mean, the attempted assassination of Jack was incredibly dramatic for someone who was blogging on Facebook to suddenly find themselves being shot at in a cafe, execution style, to the head and to the chest. And then within weeks, someone actually dying in Thailand. Quite clearly, it's a disturbing situation where the online and the offline are too closely connected. So it's also important for me to say that Jack, being a young person, brings us to our next speaker who's joining us online. Hafizh Nabiyyin is a youth, our next speaker is Hafizh. Hafizh Nabiyyin is a youth activist dedicated to who is the head of the Freedom of Expression Division at the Southeast Asia Freedom of Expression Network, most commonly known as SAFEnet Indonesia. And Indonesia has been in the news because of the presidential election on 14th of February. Not a happy Valentine's Day for many of us in the region concerned with digital dictatorship, democracy, and human rights. Hafizh, you have the floor for the next 10 minutes to tell us what we need to be alert to. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. First of all, am I audible for those who are in the location?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
If you want to talk louder, even better.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Debbie, and hello, everyone. I am Hafizh from SAFEnet, Southeast Asia Freedom of Expression Network. So in this occasion, I will explain and elaborate more about the Indonesian part of the report that Debbie has introduced before. So first of all, before we discuss about the current situation, like Debbie said before, about the result of Indonesian election, I would like to elaborate about the how this digital dictatorship also happen in Indonesia, or at least seems like to happen in the future Indonesia. So we can see from the trend that this report time frame within this report time frame from 2022 until 2023. So first of all, I would like to start from the legal framework in Indonesia, where we can see that despite of the guarantee of freedom of expression in Indonesian national constitution, as well as in the human rights law in Indonesia, there are still many conflicting laws with this guarantee, with this safeguard, which is the criminal code, the old one, and also the new ones, and also the electronic information and transaction law, or we oftenly call it as IT law. So even though that this IT law and also the criminal code has been amended by earlier on this year, and the criminal code in the last year, but we can see that there are still a lot of vague provisions such as defamation, fake news, and also hate speech, where these laws continue to be a nightmare for Indonesian human rights defenders, journalists, youth, and also the ordinary netizens in Indonesia, where this draconian law have the potential, still have the potential to claim more and more victims continuously. Because rather than safeguarding the freedom of expression, these laws still maintain the problematic articles that the civil society coalition has advocated for years and years, but it's still on the amended law. And the government also have broad powers to regulate online content, which also raise our concerns on the human rights, especially the privacy and also the freedom of expression. Can be seen from the Ministerial of Communication and Informatics Regulations number 5 or MR5 concerning electronic system providers, which mandates the digital platform to hinder or facilitate the spread of prohibited content. However, we see that this law is neglect the three-part test of human rights restriction, where the social media platform just have a maximum 24 hours to determine which content that they want to remove or not from the platform. And once the government think that they fail to moderate the content, then the government can impose sanction to them, which is also raise our concerns to about the social media platform to do something like offer content moderation or offer censorship, because they of course hinder the sanction from the government. Beside of that, because the time frame of the report started during the pandemic COVID-19, we also see that Indonesian authorities have tightened restriction on freedom of expression, particularly that those targeting critics of the government's pandemic response. We record that hundreds of cases has been opened during the COVID-19 under the IT law, with individuals facing prosecution for alleged dissemination of COVID-19 related disinformation. Police were granted emergency cyber patrol powers in 2021 to monitor online discourse surrounding the pandemic. This is of course also raise our concerns about the mass surveillance conducted by the state actor. And also, there are a lot of hackers that targeted dissenting voices, including a university professor that critical of the government, and also media outlet that reporting on the pandemic management by the government. Moreover, the government also pressure social media platform to remove negative COVID-19 content, leading to concerns about the censorship and transparency in content moderation process. Because like I said before, that the content moderation in Indonesia is not yet have a good legal basis, because it had regulated in the MR5, but it's more like excessive way of the government to restrict the content and criticize to them. And beside of that, the online gender-based violence also injurize the freedom of expression on the online freedom of expression in Indonesia. In Indonesia, the OGBV shown as the complex dynamics of the power relations and challenges the accessibility and safety of digital and online space for all members of society, including women, children, and also the LGBTIQ individuals. Despite the growing prevalence of OGBV, we see that there is a lack of comprehensive analysis and support structure for the victims, exacerbating the imbalance between the reported cases and also the available resources. Although the Indonesia Parliament have passed the anti-sexual violence law, but we see that the implementation is still not clear, because the implementation regulation is still not issued by the government. And when it comes to the practice on the field, on the ground, we can see that the police oftenly still prefer to use the anti-pornography law or also the ITE law beside of rather than the anti-sexual violence law. And also the task force of the task force KBGU, that an initiative initiated by the Purple Cloud Collective, also record that there are a significant number of complaints stemming from individuals aged 21 to 25. In terms of the types of OGBV that oftenly happen or occur in Indonesia. Sextortion is the most prevalent one, followed by non-consensual dissemination of intimate image, this is also highlighting the urgent need of us to tailor solution and collaborative effort to address this multifaceted issue. And last but not least, we also highlighting the attack on dissent and the human rights defenders in Indonesia that fight for freedom of expression. There are a lot of high-profile cases illustrate how the activists, journalists, and also ordinary citizens face prosecution under the criminal code or ITE law, which is very, very undermining the democratic values that Indonesian normatively has adopted after the New Order era. In Indonesia, there are a lot of activists and human rights defenders also confront daunting and face obstacles as they endeavor to defend freedom of expression against mounting restriction on online speech and also the criminalization of dissent. And we can see that the concept of strategic lawsuit against public participation of SLAP remains under-recognized in Indonesia. Actually, for the environmental rights defenders, they are a safeguard, but it's not strong enough to make them free from this kind of lawsuit when they defend the environmental rights on their area. Which is this also leaving targets vulnerable and unable to dismiss cases with ease, where they must face the charge because of their legitimate expression. There are also, we can see that a lot of manipulation of defamation law under the criminal code that enable vested interest to silent critics, exacerbating the challenge of obtaining effective remedies. Despite of the presence of non-judicial grievance mechanism like the Indonesia National Commission on Human Rights, which is the national human rights institution in Indonesia, their efficacy is marred by political influence and a lack of prosecution for the human rights violators. Furthermore, the whistleblowers and activists endure inadequate protection, hindered by institutional gap and also corruption within the existing laws. Amidst of this challenge, the misuse of laws such as IT law has led to criminalization of countless individuals exercising their right to freedom of expression online, with high-profile cases. Like I said before, illustrate how the prosecution can faced by everyone in Indonesia. Or in our campaign, we call Semua Bisa Kena, which means that everyone can be the victims of these draconian laws. This is including one of the high-profile cases in the latest, I think the latest 2 years, which is activists like Haris Azhar and Fatia Maulidianti have also reported and accused by the one of our coordinating minister, Luhut Panjaitan, because of their content on the podcast that reveal the possibility of the minister in the military operation in Papua and how it also related to its personal business. But what happened after the podcast published, 1 month later, the minister report Haris and Fatia to the police, and this case also run, and but after that, in the earlier of this year, they have passed the court and do not, and they can pass the law lah. And those are the current situation of the freedom of expression in Indonesia, and also the digital situation in Indonesia, if we look at from the human rights perspective. So we can see that there are increasing online censorship and human rights violation, including freedom of expression, where there are still need for legal reform to safeguard online freedom of expressions in Indonesia. So maybe I will stop here, Debbie. Maybe we can discuss later, yeah, if you need something to elaborate. Thank you.
Thanks, Hafizh. The situation has indeed been dire in the past 4 years in Indonesia, but it's also good to understand that the judicial harassment of human rights defenders Haris Azhar and Fathia Maulidianti for what they said online in terms of exposing the business interests of generals, military in West Papua, where there have been a lot of serious widespread and serious human rights violations to local population because of these economic interests, these economic activities. They exposed it, and then they were subjected to judicial harassment, having a sword, basically the threat of imprisonment hanging over their head for nearly 2 years. So the great thing is that there was pushback, it was challenged in the court, and they were acquitted after this very oppressive past 2 years. But also for oldie like me, we know the term GBV, gender-based violence, but now we have OGBV, which is online gender-based violence. And in Indonesia, it's interesting to note that Task Force KBGO is actually assisting people with legal and technical and psychological aid who've been subjected to OGBV. And it's quite concerning to note that many of the victims are aged 21 to 25. So this is important for us to understand that while the authorities are persecuting freedom of expression and human rights defenders, they have been protecting the rights of the perpetrators of abuses with impunity. And on the subject of OGBV, I want to hand the mic to Tanruthai Pim Thanrut from Mokeluang, Rimnam. She's a Thai youth pro-democracy activist and a lesbian human rights defender, someone who has been really prominent in the LGBTQIA rights community in Thailand. And because of being a human rights defender, a pro-democracy activist, and a member of the community, she was subjected and targeted very cruelly and nastily with OGBV. I wanted Pim to share what she went through, but also how she was able to get through this ordeal. Over to you for the next 10 minutes.
Thank you, Debbie. So I'll introduce myself again. I'm Pim Tanruthai Thanrat. You can call me Pim. Actually, I'm like the youth activist about the political in Thailand. About 2012 until today and tomorrow and the next day. Basically, before I become the activist, I have the experience about the sexual harassment and sexual violence. On that time, it's very difficult for me. I thought it's very difficult for everyone. It's have a trauma. Until 2012. Yes, 2012. Yes. It's have the protest about the political. On that time, if you remember, the Thailand is have a really big protest on the street everywhere. As on that time, it's have the one topic to pop it up. Actually, they do it before about the gender, but on that time, it's become too popular. So on that time, if you remember, it's have a one dance we call Sida or Sida Levi, or in English is a rap in your pet, the patriarchy. This song It about the female who have to walk past, about the patriarchalism, about the trauma, about everything. And on that time, I'm the one who in the group for the dancing does. And it's have the keep like the video of myself on online. It's have a really bad comment. We have to say that because we want the democracy for Thailand. Actually, for today, it's not real democracy. But we can tell that we even don't have the feminists in here. Everywhere still have the patriarchy inside. So sure, it's have a lot. It's have a one thing the government gave it to us. It's called IO or information operation. They are the person who we don't know exactly they are the sawyer or not, but they have the one job to do about research us, harass us, the activity. They harass us online. They have a bad comment for us. They sexual violence for us, for the activity. Not only me, I have to say that. That operation is very bad because it's harass our privacy on social media. Even the picture that we post, they sharing it, they report it, they copy it, and they report it and use the bad word. Maybe it's on our picture. Or with that, I'm not the only activist. Life have to go on. I have another work to do. My work is like the models. Every picture that I take, the nude model, I had to say that, it's showing up for the information operation or IO. They reported. They have a bad comment for it. About my body, about my face, about my everything, about my gender. Yes. It's very difficult time if you are the activist and if you are the woman activist, if you are the LGBTQ activist, it's more difficult to stay because not only the patriarchy have for the opposite side, it still have the patriarchy for the democracy side too. So it's about the culture in Thai. For the comment on social media is the another thing. Both is have the like in the real life, it still have it. You know that's it's very dark story. I do the protest. I on the track and have a one person who I even don't know. He ride a motorbike past us, and he touched my boat. Yes, actually, it's very fast. We even don't know that it's very fast. So do I have a ticker warning this about the story that I sharing because it's very, very dark and somber. It's not only me who have to face about it. I gonna give you my friends who have the experience like me. more than me. She is the youth activist, younger than me. She is the one who have a beauty standard. So they bully her by her gender. She is the one who take a picture about stop rape in a war. Yes. She put the fake bust everywhere in her body, on her body. After that, is have her picture on online and have a hate speech over there and have the fake story for her for the IO, for the operation, even for the patriarchy, masculinism. Yes. They believe that they're blaming you are warm. You deserve to. You deserve to react. It's have a very bad comment. If you remember, 2012, it's have a lot of people who is showing up on the protest. Some people is famous, and I will not say the name, but she's the one who do the OnlyFans, very profit case and popular. Or she don't use the she the activist, but she go to the protest. She just go to the protest. She do the OnlyFans in Thailand. And she's the one who got the harassed, the sexual harassed. Even in the protest, social media is more. It's kind of worse because if you're the female, you're the LGBT, you're the woman, you're the LGBT, and you are the activist. And more than this, if you're the political activist, to be blaming you everything, you deserve to have a sexual violence. You deserve to. So, like I say that, if you have a democracy, it's another one. But how do we handle with the patriarchy? It's more than. I'm gonna tell you, we have more time, right? It's kind of the worst thing about the patriarchy with the democracy. Yes, because when we do the protests, after that, we will talk about the how today. We will like have a conversation to learning it to do it better. After that, maybe we're gonna eat or something. It's have like another activist who try to step up on my body. Wow. Looks to me at that time, it doesn't have anything happen. So I really wondered, I'm the one who got harassed. But in the real life, it still have too many people who got harassed. Even we are the women human rights defender. Even we are like defending for the patriarchy. We are defending for the government. We want democracy, but even we want the gender equality. That's the best part. Because democracy is about the mind, but the gender equality is about the culture, about the heart, about the understanding. It is a path for activists who have to handle with the sexual harassment. But we have another thing that's harassed, like the people who stalking us is having every time. Yes. If it is someday is have some people who show up in front of our house. It's like a basic life for us, but it's not the basic. It's not. It's weird. It's bad. It's worst. So for me, I will give the last word. That's about if we protect on our right, I gotta say this, not only for our side, it's for opposite side, for the political. Or I want to send this message to the IO. Yes. If we stand for our right, you try stand for your job. We can be the human, and human is don't deserve for the violence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pim. Thank you for sharing such a painful, personal, but also powerful insights and your experience that we can see where online gender-based violence, OGBV, is really, it's not just words online. It is sexual and psychological violence and creating an incitement for people to actually physically harass someone and physically sexually attack someone in real life. So I think this is where women and LGBT plus activists, human rights defenders are disproportionately affected by this. And it is horrifying to see that harassment has become normalized, both online and offline. But I feel so inspired that when it comes to information operation, which is really a disinformation operation, that Pim is trying to remind them not just of our humanity, but of their own humanity, that in the end, they have to live with themselves for doing this nasty shit to women. Thank you, Pim. We are going to have to move on to the next speaker, Wei Nu, who is joining us very early in the morning in her time zone. Wei Nu is a lawyer. She received her bachelor's in law from the University of Yangon in Myanmar and her master's degree in law from the University of Berkeley. Many people don't realize Wei was a teenage political prisoner. She was imprisoned in the notorious insane prison for 7 years. And then she emerged from jail to become a human rights advocate, to become founder and executive director of the Women's Peace Network and the Yangon Youth Center. Wewe has also felt the brunt of online surveillance and harassment. And I'm going to give the floor to you, Wewe. Thank you so much for joining us. You are looking very gorgeous for 6 a.m. in your time?
7.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, so you got the floor for 10 minutes. She's going to give us an update on what's happening in Myanmar. So Wewe, over to you for the next 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Debbie, and it's an honor to be here with you all today. And thank you, Pam, and other fellow speakers for sharing your insights and experiences and situations in respective countries. It is very unfortunate to see the digital dictatorship or attack against the freedom of expressions and digital space is happening by using multitude of ways in our region. Going back to Myanmar, let me briefly discuss about the legal framework in relation to the freedom of expressions, both prior to coup and after. Before the Burmese military's attempted coup, Myanmar had some, I would say, some level of freedom of expression with that so-called window of transition to democracy, 10 years of time. Many were actually able to rallies, organize protests against issues like civil war or workers' rights. Often they don't end up in a good ending. But at the same time, students were able to organize, for instance, commemoration days for 88 uprisings and other key historical movements. So I would say, to some degree, people could express their opinion on social, on the street and on social media and so on. However, there were many issues back then. There were flaws, obviously, in Myanmar's judiciary, with the military's influence pervasive and rights often violated, especially freedom of expressions. People face harassment, arrest, and detention for attempting to criticize the Burmese military, in some cases, even the civilian government. In this context, we had laws criminalizing defamations like sections 499 to 502 of the Penal Code, the 2013 telecommunication law, anti-corruption law, the 2014 news media law, and the privacy law. And many of them were used as grounds to arrest students, labor activists, journalists, and ethnic and religious minorities for raising their voices. The Unlawful Associations Act and the Telecommunications Law have been wielded as weapon to silence critics, including journalists, activists reporting on the Rohingya genocide. The one famous case is the case of Walong and Joso. On top of that, we did have Myanmar National Human Rights Commissions, but it had inadequate protection and inability to operate independently from the military, while, like I mentioned, the judiciary lacked independence and impartiality. And now, since the attempted coup in 2021, the situation has deteriorated further. Myanmar today has no access to remedy for human rights abuses, no due process, no effective legal framework in place, and absolutely no rule of law. By toppling an elected government, the military attempted to create an environment to justify its actions in all its brutal, unjust, and unlawful ways. The military's actions include killing, torture, arbitrary arrest and detention, sexual and gender-based violence, airstrikes, scorched earth campaign. Soon after declaring its so-called state of emergency, the military amended existing laws and introduced new ones to legitimize the brutalities. They include like amendment to the penal code and electronic transaction law to criminalize offline and online expressions of oppositions to the coup. And the military is also targeting people in the digital space and arbitrarily arresting and detaining them for voicing any kind of oppositions against the coup. So we have had cases of military even posing as activists on Facebook in attempt to find and detain more civilians, especially young activists. Another alarming case is the junta's sham cybersecurity law, which aimed to outlaw VPN and arrest people using VPN and sentence them to 3 years imprisonment. So the military is clearly weaponizing the law to stifle any kinds of dissent against the junta. However, despite the immense challenges they face, the young people, the people of Myanmar, are still determined to defend the military and hold it accountable and build a truly inclusive federal democracy. People remaining in Myanmar continue to express and resist in all sorts of ways, from launching online campaigns to protests on the street, from the street to the cities. Many young people also have no choices but to defend themselves. Now, especially after the junta's sham forced conscription law, is leaving them in a state of despair with no alternative or no viable alternatives. At the same time, those who have been forced into exiles are also contributing to the movement, even without full access to security, protections, and livelihood where they are now. Throughout all of these gender-based violence continue to be committed disproportionately, targeting women, LGBTQI+ individuals, ethnic minorities, Rohingya, and other vulnerable populations, both online and offline. The gender-based violence encompasses various forms of violence, including online hate speech and doxing. Since the coup, there has been an incredibly disturbing surge in this kind of behavior, especially against the women in pro-democracy movement. They include women human rights defenders in exile in Myanmar's neighboring countries such as Thailand. Telegram in particular has emerged as a breeding ground for hostility, with up to 8,338 abusive messages and 15,000 doxing messages identified. Speaking of my experience, as Debbie mentioned earlier, I myself was targeted by this campaign on Facebook and other social media platforms even before the attempted coup. I was doxxed, intimidated, and sent rape threats online on my activisms or for my identity. And I recall reporting these posts to Facebook, but never seen any kind of proper follow-up actions from the company to these days. This reaches its peak right before the 2017 genocidal attack against my community, when anti-Rohingya and Islamophobic hate speech were hosted on both official and informal communication channels. Now we're seeing a similar patterns today of Rohingya still being persecuted in a multitude of methods. In Myanmar, the 600,000 remaining Rohingya are now at growing risks of recurrence of genocide beyond the country. It's become clear that the online hate speech and act to silence Rohingya aren't just limited to Myanmar. We saw this in India over the past years, and as this report, as well as my organization, Women's Peace Network, latest briefing papers analyzed. It's in Indonesia and other countries in the region. As the boat crisis exacerbates, it's becoming even more urgent for the internationals and regional stakeholders to do everything to protect Rohingya, and especially from the online hate speech, misinformations, and disinformations. I look forward to discussing this in detail if we have a chance during the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Wei Wei. It's a very dramatic account of how the online persecution actually contributed to a genocide. And if genociding the Rohingya wasn't enough, back in 2017, we're actually seeing a rise in online hate campaign against Rohingya, but also very much targeting women as well, Rohingya women, not just in India and Bangladesh, but also in Indonesia and Malaysia. So we do need to actually see how the law has been weaponized by repressive regimes to protect perpetrators of human rights violations, and then to go after even the survivors of a genocide. I'm looking forward to our final speaker, but before then, I'm also looking forward to welcoming Henry to the microphone. Henry Koh is the fellow Malaysian. Yeah, Malaysian. Is the executive director of ILGA Asia and a passionate advocate for human rights. Their commitment to human rights stems from their personal journey and their vision to combat marginalization. Henry, we've already started to get an understanding of the particular dangers and threats that members of the LGBTQ+ community face in this under digital dictatorship. So please enlighten us more.
Thank you so much, Debbie, and thank you so much for having me. On behalf of ILGA Asia, I would really like to thank Manushya Foundation and also Emilie for including us to be in this coalition. And also, I think for my colleagues in the ASEAN Coalition to Stop Digital Dictatorship, I think that we are really also coming together to take cognizance that as intersectional feminists in our region, we do recognize that the internet was never equal for everyone. And as we do hear stories of online gender-based violence, we do need to know that every day, a lot of lesbian, gay, bisexual, intersex, trans, and queer people across ASEAN are still being vilified for their sexual orientation, gender identity expressions, and their sex characteristics. Now, I think we can all agree that the internet do serve as a powerful tool for global communications and information access. But however, we are currently witnessing a concerning rise in digital authoritarianism. While the digital realm, I think, often offers immense opportunities for all of us, it is far from being neutral and egalitarian, and we need to recognize this. And it also always remains susceptible to persistent backlashes against the rights of women, girls, and LGBTIQ people. Just like any other social spaces, well, being online, I think that it reflects and let us think that it also reproduces power dynamics, power relations, and inequalities, and always it includes those that is related to gender. I think based on the report, maybe I could just share a little bit on the country highlights on what has been really affecting, I think, our queer communities across ASEAN. So in the expansive landscape of digital rights infringements, specifically, I think on population, notably women and queer people, I think we often find ourselves disproportionately vulnerable while being online. And I am very sure of all of you with us today or watching us online, you would have faced, similar backlashes yourself, or have known or witnesses like what Pim has, kindly shared with us earlier, that are people in your lives that are facing backlashing, doxing, and all the other horrible things just because of your gender or your sexual orientation and, identities. Well, across the Philippines, there are so much of challenges and to be endured by the queer community, striving to freely express themselves, online amid pervasive criticism and discrimination. I'll not go into detail in cases because our next colleague and also ex-colleague, Dr. Jin, will be explaining a little bit more about that. But zooming back to where we are in Thailand, as some of you might have known the case of Nada Chayajit, which is quite recent, I think less than 2 years ago. Well, the case of Nada in Thailand stands as a poignant intersection of gender, being LGBTIQ person, freedom of expression, as well as corporate accountability. Now, that is also why there is a vested interest of people trying to attack her online, right? But I think what is poignant about this whole case for Nada is the court's recognition of her as a human rights defender. I think that establishes a crucial precedent of that particular recognition. Well, similarly, in Malaysia, where I'm from, in a 2021 survey by a local group called Justice for Sisters, exposes heightened stress and discrimination within the LGBTIQ community, often fueled by media sensationalism, religious extremists, politicians, and online hate speech. And also, I think what is rather concerning for us, zooming into, I think, past 2023, is that the Malaysian government's stringent control over online speech, including blocking websites addressing LGBTIQ people, content, freedom of religious issues even, I think that further exacerbates these challenges. Now, in Cambodia, our other ASEAN neighbor, in 2021, there is a Licado report that underscores the high rates of online harassment among queer people, activists, and youth, and with Facebook being a predominant platform for such incidents. Now, I think that these instances that highlights, and I do recommend that you read the report. You know, it's all here again. Get to the report after this and get dive deeper into these cases. Now, I think while looking at the report and the cases, it illustrates such a dynamic interplay of various factors, emphasizing more of the need for us to address the multifaceted challenges faced by advocates striving for justice and equality in the digital realm. Now, I think that while we hear all of these terrible stories, not all hope is being lost out, right? But we also want to recognize the great work that has been done, strategies that has been employed by great advocates such as the coalition that we're in right now across, the region. I think if I can just summarize this to say that as these cases that we have, been hearing so far, as you'll be reading in the report, as they do underscore the pressing need to confront targeted digital persecution in the region, the lack of procedural safeguards, independent oversight, and problematic appeals processes, among all of that. There is also a shrinking civic space and the emergence of digital authoritarianism as well. And this is, I think, beyond what I think the civil, normal people like you and I can do, right? And I think that this is all really being caused by digital dictatorships across ASEAN nations and countries. Now, as the intersectional feminist and decolonization movement across Southeast Asia, we always have to emphasize that our work here at a collision together, coming from different backgrounds, first of all, we unite ourselves, our power, our solidarity to end digital dictatorship by continuing our informative activities, advocacies, and cross-sector collaboration, as well as support independent evaluations and set up an independent multi-stakeholder body which monitors digital rights abuse. And we do ask all of you online as well to join us on this cause to continue to not just monitor, but to also call out in instances where you or your friends are being attacked, because I think more voices needed to be heard, because none of us are free until all of us are free. Thank you. Back to you, Debbie.
Thank you so much, Henry. And thanks for also naming Cambodia and Malaysia, because Malaysia, being truly Asia, also is truly engaged in digital dictatorship. And also important for us to note and remember that while all these painful stories are being shared, there's been so much resistance. Pim continues her work. Wewe Nu continues her work. Hafizh continues his work. Everybody is engaged in practical steps to resist the digital dictatorship and to call can call out and confront all of these very violent ways in which people, including young people and queer people and women, are attacked. So don't forget, you are not alone. You are not alone. There are groups working to defend your digital rights. And if you are under attack, please reach out. One person you should be reaching out to is Jean Linis-Dinco. Why? She's a human rights activist from the Philippines. She's completely a PhD focusing on the analysis of government propaganda in the context of the Rohingya genocide in Myanmar. She's a film director, award-winning film director, and a cybersecurity specialist. So, you know, we need the doctor, cybersecurity specialist to bring, I think, to bring her boxing gloves to all of these arenas to champion our cause. And having said that, now I know it's late. We're in Melbourne, Jean, but welcome. Thanks for staying for us. And also, congratulations on looking so glamorous so late at night. Please,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
please illuminate us for the next 10 minutes. Over to
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Before I start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I stand today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I also want to recognize the indigenous peoples worldwide who face ongoing oppression and dispossession of by imperialist and capitalist forces. Let's acknowledge that the land we occupy, taken through the violence of expansion, and honor its original stewards, victims of relentless exploitation. I stand in solidarity with indigenous struggles and commit to challenging these injustices in our discussions today. Thank you, Debbie. Yeah, so there's always this notion that in countries or regions like Southeast Asia, where our governments are impinging on our freedom of speech and of the press, well, even our freedom of thought through rampant propaganda, you know, the notion that by the end of the day, we will have a little pinch of freedom to dissent through the use of social media. Because social media surely eliminated physical restrictions for activism that prevent grassroots participation from political discussions. You know, sure, Twitter back in the old days allowed several grassroots movement to flourish, if I could use that term. The old Twitter has generated a form of political participation from dissenting and marginalized population. And we've seen that concept of liberation technology comes to play here. And we've seen that in Iran in 2009, which the media happily branded as Twitter revolution, which I personally have my reservations about calling it Twitter revolution, because it kind of, you know, took away the efforts and the struggles of the people on the ground who weren't using social media. But for the sake of the argument, yes, Twitter played a role. And we've seen the same case during the Euromaidan in Ukraine in 2013, in Thailand in 2020, in Egypt, in Libya, in Hong Kong, the Military Alliance, I could go on and on. So the point here is that when governments are shit, technology has offered us little sanctuary, if I may, to serve as a counter public. And we were promised that the digital world would flatten organizations, would globalize society, decentralize control, and help harmonize people. That wasn't my word. That was Nicolas Negroponte in 1993. He said that. We used to believe that tech companies are harbingers of more open and interconnected world. But look at what we have now instead. You know, how they adopted a "don't be evil" motto early on until they decided it probably doesn't reflect what they do anymore. So the initial optimism that greeted the advent of social media has become one of the largest cons in human history. Often I would have people say after conversations like this, tell me, no, Jane, what's happening is just tech companies are being careless. That's what's happening, or what happening are isolated cases. And it's not isolated incidents or that tech companies being careless, because that's just an excuse. This is a widespread issue, deeply rooted in how these tech companies operate. They're making calculated decisions. They're not stupid. They weigh their profits against ethics, and too often profits win. Now, saying it's just carelessness overlooks the bigger picture of systemic issues at play, because we cannot sit on the fence on issues like this. Because sitting on the fence is what elected the son of dictator in my home country. Sitting on the fence is why there's climate change inaction. Sitting on the fence is why there's a rising nationalism and authoritarianism globally. Sitting on the fence is why we are in this pandemonium. We need to demand more accountability, push a more proactive stance, and not just react when things go south, because that's what they're expecting us to do. The power of big companies is growing alarmingly. And this level of influence is unprecedented in human history. They control so much data, dominate online spaces, giving them huge power to shape what we all see, what we think, and what we even believe. Their influence is massive. It goes way beyond just making money. It now reaches into our personal lives, controlling our choices, our thoughts, the way we vote, the way we think, the way we act. And this is a big shift, because this extends far beyond traditional boundaries of corporate power. So what we see now is that few corporations hold so much power over information and our freedom of thought. And all for what? Profit. Well, this whole mess started with the tech industry's obsession with endless growth and money-making, especially in social media and data sectors. They put profits above everything else, sacrificing our privacy, moral values, and the good of the society. They trade on our personal data and attention, exploiting us for financial gain. And they're not just selling us stuff anymore, because it went beyond that ages ago, and we didn't know. Well, we probably knew deep inside, but we just kept on buying. Yeah, it's now, because now they're selling us ideologies. They're selling us perceptions. They're manufacturing consent, all while pretending to offer us a world of endless choice. Hell, 4 cameras here. I have a new phone with 3 cameras and so on. Glamorous. This is a stark reality that we face, a reality where our digital chains are forged from the very tools that we once celebrated as hallmarks of progress and enlightenment. Because when your goal is to accumulate the most money in least possible time, you'd collect the most precious resources of the digital age, and it's data. This collect approach, as I've mentioned so many times before, has cracked open a Pandora's box that is prone to misuse by governments. And this strategy is lucrative. It has morphed users into commodities, and with our personal information for grubs. So here we see that privacy is more of a hurdle to be bypassed. So more of like inconvenience, if you could call it, inconvenience to corporate profit making. And these consequences of the data dominance of this data dominance world extend beyond the boardrooms, and it goes into the very fabric of our society, particularly in the realm of human rights and freedom. Governments are tempted by the vast pool of data now accessible through private tech companies, and this access allows for surveillance capabilities that were previously unimaginable, enabling states to monitor citizens, curtail freedoms, suppress dissents with alarming efficiency. And the potential for such surveillance not only threatens our individual privacy, but also it undermines the foundational principles of democracy and freedom, and paving the way for a society where state power is unchecked. As my previous panelist said, Myanmar is a stark case where the military has really misused technology to commit serious human rights abuses. They've used surveillance to spot and then harshly crack down on anyone opposing. And since the military took over in 2001, they've been all about crushing digital freedom, using tech to go after protesters and anyone speaking out against them. This is a clear example of how dangerous it can be when a government uses technology against its people. There were even times when the junta cut off internet access or blocked social media to control what information could be shared or people get. So it's like they're showing the world the scary side of how technology can be twisted to suppress freedom. In Thailand, as what Emilie have mentioned, the government, for instance, is pushing I think this was in 2020 when the government pushed Google to remove content that challenge section 112. And right now, they want to stop anything that might encourage opposition or dissent. So it's a way to keep things under control using the power of big tech. And over in Cambodia and Laos, it's a similar story. The governments are using legal and sneaky ways to quiet any resistance. Well, they would often say that it's for national security, protect the people way of life. But really, it's all about staying in power. They're using digital tools like social media and internet surveillance to watch what people say and do online, making sure that nobody steps out of the line. And in Vietnam, Facebook has agreed to block access to certain anti-government content to users rather than risk losing an estimated 1 billion in annual revenue from the country. Governments do these things. They invade your privacy and silence people who disagree with them. And these tech companies, they're not just dipping their toes in the waters of Southeast Asia. They're diving in head first because they see the dollar signs. The e-commerce market in Southeast Asia alone is expected to reach over 211 billion US dollars by 2025. They're chasing profits, and let's be honest, they're really good at it. But here's the catch: they're playing by the rules set by local regimes, rules that don't exactly prioritize things like free speech or privacy. So think about it. When a government says jump, these companies are quick to ask, how high? Why? Because they don't want to miss out on the market, on the vast data pools, on the ad revenue. They're in the business of making money. And if that means compromising in values like free speech or user privacy, well, it seems like they're willing to make that trade. And at what cost? Well, that's our privacy, our freedom to speak out, our right not to be bombarded with ads for things that we don't even need. So they're supposed to be the champions of the digital age. That's what we're promised. Innovators, disruptors, I don't know. But what are they really disrupting if they bend the knee to every demand that threatens the profit margin? So it's like, where do you draw the line? At what point do they say, no, I stand firm, we stand for more than just profits, but instead, it kind of feels like they're saying, as long as we can keep our operations running, keep the ads rolling, data flowing, we're good. It's all about the bottom line, and everything else, including our fundamental rights, seems to take a backseat. So what do? Do we keep feeding the beast, or do we start demanding better, holding that these tech giants accountable, insisting that they stand up for more than just their profits? Don't you think it's time that they align their actions with the values they love to talk about? They've mastered the art of public relations, haven't they? They participated in pride marches in all countries around the world, celebrated in Women's Day, and all the while they use these events as a shield, as a way to project a progressive image while their business practices were all shit. It's time for these tech giants to walk the talk. No more hiding behind rainbow flags or feminist hashtags while perpetuating a system that exploits the very people. It's about aligning their immense resources and influence with a commitment to real and meaningful values, and not just the ones that look pretty in a PR campaign. People, we've got power to make big changes, to push the tech world to really respect our rights and treat us with dignity. We have to come together and use our shared anger, frustration, and take action to build a digital future that's truly for all of us. And this isn't about making more money for the few at the top. They have enough. It's about making sure that technology works for everyone, making our online world fair and making sure it's a place where we all have a say and our very human rights are treated correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Those are fighting words and a reality check that tech companies are cooperating with repressive regimes because it means billions of dollars. They're after profit. A lot of what's happening doesn't happen in isolation. It's not accidental. It's not companies being careless. It's actually part of a systemic collaboration with repressive regimes. But those companies need us. They need our data. And therefore, we do have a way to resist. We just have to listen to Jean. I was looking forward to Q&A, but I think we've kind of run out of time. But I'm going to propose to Emilie and Manushya Foundation that perhaps we should have an online sequel to our launch where people who've joined online and in person can join us again online to do the Q&A in a few days time. Not few years, few days. Sorry, I'm tired. So let's please stay in touch and watch this space. Please leave your contact details in case we have a follow-up so that we can have more of a conversation on all this amazing information that we've covered and also all the resistance that's been happening. I want to thank all the hardworking team at Junction for hosting us, and the hardworking team at Manushya Foundation for putting together this report, a labor of love, and putting together this launch, both online and in person, and our speakers, both online and in person. The ASEAN Regional Coalition to hashtag Stop Digital Dictatorship comprises ALTSEAN-Burma, the Cambodian Center for Human Rights, ALTSEAN, Foundation for Media Alternatives, ILGA Asia, Manushya Foundation, Project 88, Rohingya Mayaphinor Collaborative Network, SAFEnet, and Women's Peace Network. I also wanted to give a special shout out to Dama, the former executive director of SAFEnet, who was one of the founding members that helped put this regional coalition together. Do we have time for one question? No? Yes? It's up to the moderator. Moderator has run away. Any burning questions? Yes, please.
I'm Larissa. I'm a fellow at Thai Lawyers for Human Rights. We do work to help provide advocacy and legal assistance to those who are criminalized for exercising their rights to freedom of expression and assembly. It was brought to our attention that the working group on discrimination against women and girls will actually be coming to Thailand in December 2024. So I was wondering, is there any plans to engage with that working group ahead of their visit in 2024? And my second question is for PPI or PPIM. First of all, thank you for being so vulnerable. My question specifically has to do with you being a Thai woman activist, and if you know any connections between charges against other pro-democracy activists and human rights defenders, specifically less just charges and Computer Crime Act charges, online and in-person harassment against them. Specifically, I'm thinking of Talwan right now, who is currently detained and still on hunger strike since last month to protest the right to bail. And I know that she has faced so much online harassment as well. So I was just wondering if you could give more insight on that and the criminalization of these women human rights defenders.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much about this. Maybe we can have more time together. And I would just say that not only the one who have the harass, actually who hunger strike for now is have Frank, the one, but Bas and Boom. Yeah, for person hunger strike for now. Dry strike too actually. So for people, they have a harass on online too. In the person actually too, same. Yes, so maybe we can keep it touch. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Regarding your question for the UN Working Group on Discrimination Against Women coming at the end of this year, so what will happen is that there are a lot of groups coming together and they get in touch with us, right? So you have WCHR getting in touch with us anyway, trying to organize a meeting prior to the visit. But there will be mobilization of women human rights defenders and women's rights groups coming together. There's also the CEDAW review of Thailand coming up early next year. So we will be mobilizing people for both and then provide information at the same time. And also, I think Pim doesn't want to share much, so that's why she wants to have a direct conversation with you, because there's some information that is confidential. But I would like to highlight the fact that women human rights defenders of Thailand, otherwise who are the front, they are the ones who are taking so much risk in terms of doing hunger strikes, and nobody is actually giving them enough recognition. And they are so powerful, and they are basically the one driving the youth movement, the democracy movement. It was women human rights defenders, it was the LGBT community. The free youth movement was born out of a gay couple kissing at the parliament, calling themselves then the free youth movement, and then it became the pro-democracy movement. So I think Pim can share with you more in person. Is there anyone who has a last question on Zoom? So this was really important and informative session. Thank you to the organizers and panelists. Keep up the fight. Good to see so many groups and people fighting back against dictatorship. It's from Zhengling. It's our friend from the Military Alliance, Friends of Myanmar. Thank you. We stand in solidarity with our friends from the Military Alliance. Obviously, a lot of them are being victims of digital dictatorship. I would like to close the session because we're running out of time. And thank you so much for everybody to join. Really, thank you for coming. I really encourage you to look at our reports. We have highlighted cases of pandemic politics, how COVID-19 was weaponized against us online. We also have sections on intersectional gender analysis, where we talk about online gender-based violence and specific cases in all of the countries that are being covered in this report. Please share the report. This is the first ASEAN Regional Coalition report. There are other reports that are coming up in the coming months, specific to internet shutdown, specific to data protection and AI. So stay tuned. We have more reports coming up. And as Jean said, we are not going to sit on the border of the fence. A lot of people in the coalition are standing very strong in support of the Rohingya community and in support of people of Palestine. And so that's something that we really want to make clear, is that the ASEAN Regional Coalition to Stop Digital Dictatorship is on a mission to decolonize digital rights. And so any donors or any people from the global north telling us not to be speaking about genocide, not to be holding tech companies into account too strongly, because we have to be careful. We just want to let you know that our coalition is fearless. We are here to decolonize digital rights. And so we're going to do it, no matter what donors are telling us and no matter what people from the global north are telling us, because they need to work with tech companies. We are not here to work hand in hand with tech companies. We want tech companies to respect our rights, and we want tech companies to stop the ongoing genocide that has been happening to our friends from the Rohingya community and is now happening against our friends from Palestine. So thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned because we have more reports coming up, and join our movement because we need to stop the dictatorship together. So let's stand in solidarity together. Thank you everyone for coming.
Everyone, again, we have some coffee, tea, snacks over there, and thanks to Manushya